All right, here we are with another episode of the High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Sal, how's it going today?
Doing wonderful today, Ryan.
Still a glorious day at Premier Companies, right?
Every day's a holiday and every meal's a feast.
I'm going to make you say it every time.
I like it.
Yeah, so I'm going to make you say it every time now. That's going to be your tagline.
4 o'clock comes early. Get going.
new T-shirts with that on it.
I like it.
I do too. Sounds good. Hey, we've got a guest in the house with us today, Don Schnitcker. How are you this morning?
I'm great, thanks.
We're continuing our Farm Legacy series with this interview. And so first and foremost, we'll get the important stuff out of the way with the question of the day.
All right.
All right. So your question of the day is, what is a food that everyone else seems to like, but you can't stand?
Well, I got to ask a question to see if my answer will be valid.
Okay.
Is ketchup a food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I do not like ketchup.
Really?
Really?
That's interesting.
And I'll do the follow-up. I mean, you like tomatoes?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, so we can connect those.
Yeah, but I do like salsa. I do like chili. I mean,
Meatloaf?
as long as
Doesn't have
Susie uses
ketchup
As long as it's hamburger.
as long as Susie puts barbecue sauce in it, we're
Oh,
fine.
yeah. All
I've
right.
never tried meatloaf with barbecue sauce.
It'd be really good, I'm guessing.
I think it would be.
It is good.
That's good. Well, that's interesting. I didn't see that one coming.
I did not either.
No. Nope. So what's yours, Sal?
So wait, I got to go back to the ketchup.
Okay.
So French fries are just straight
Nope.
up.
Oh, no. I mean, even the grandkids try to put the minute little bit of ketchup on a French fry just so that I'll taste it. And then they get the biggest kick whenever I find it. So,
Was there something that happened? I
No.
mean, usually as a kid that
no,
maybe,
I
okay.
just never liked the taste of it.
Well, my daughter showed me last week over Thanksgiving where they've come out with clear ketchup now, so they may slip one by you. With it.
They could. I heard where Heinz is coming out with a pickle flavored ketchup.
Huh.
I don't
Next,
know.
there'll be mustard flavored ketchup or something.
Right. Well, that'd be the only way he'd eat it. They're gonna sell it. They're gonna sell it. Well, what's yours, Sal?
Well, I don't know if this is something that everyone else likes, but several people seem to. And boiled cabbage.
I wouldn't like that either.
Oh my gosh. It just makes me nauseous, and I'll eat egg rolls. I like coleslaw. But when I was a kid, Mom would, I think she would get mad at me. She would boil cabbage on the stove, and it would drive me out of the house. And but just the smell of boiled cabbage, I can't even
Wow.
be in the building.
And I can't imagine that side of the line, there's a lot of people on it, but that love it. But I mean,
can't either,
No,
but
I'd say you'd be in a majority.
It
there.
appears to be a popular item at some of our branches because they do like.
Oh, is that right?
They do. They like boiled. I don't know why.
I like it baked.
Maybe if I put ketchup
I do
on
like
it.
that.
Maybe it's to keep you out of their office.
There you go.
Oh, that's it.
There you
It's
go.
like mothballs for.
Yep.
Yeah.
For
Boiled
sure.
cabbage. Yeah.
Well, mine is, and I don't know that everybody likes it, but they seem to show up in a lot. But peas, I just don't like peas. I
Really?
just don't. And when I was a kid, I used to like split pea soup, and then I kind of figured out that it was just a good way to ruin bacon and ham. I thought I could just eat the bacon and the ham. So yeah, peas can show up in places just like I don't know why we did. I don't know why we did that.
Like
I mean, you can
vegetable
slide
soup?
them through. Yeah. See, I don't.
You
I
don't.
can,
You just leave
no.
them. Eat them. Or
Oh yeah, I'll eat them, but I wouldn't. If I make it, you won't catch them in there.
Yeah.
So.
My fallback was going to be Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just like cabbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there too.
Yeah. You can't put enough seasoning on a Brussels sprout to make it taste good.
I don't know. I kind of like them, but
See,
that's
hey.
yeah. There's a lot of bacon. You can put a lot of bacon and stuff on it. They do hold a lot of stuff to cover them up. But ultimately, I heard a comedian one time say, "Isn't it sad that the best compliment you can give a fish is that it's not very fishy?" He goes, "How awful do you have to be when the best compliment you can be paid is, well, you're not like yourself." That's
good.
really good.
Doesn't have that fishy taste.
Right, right, right. The best thing you can do is not taste like what you're supposed to taste like. So yeah, there might be several foods in that category. So hey, we've taken way too long on that. So we'll get back to the Farm Legacy series here. So thank you for joining us first and
welcome.
foremost, and we'll start with what year did your farm start and who started it?
Well, I really don't know when the first year was. We still own a piece of property that my great grandfather bought
Wow.
and farm it. So
That on the highway? right?
No, it's up by White's Chapel Church.
Okay.
Up in that area of the county, almost Bartholomew County. And I guess, he farmed it. And then when he passed away, his son, my grandfather, did not farm it. And we bought it probably close to 35, 40 years ago. And so, yeah, that's still in, and it was always in the family, just we didn't farm it until sometime in the 91, 92. And then my grandpa, when he was married, he bought a farm and he farmed that. And then I still farm that piece of ground.
Well, when did so tell us about when you started?
When I started, I guess my first crop would have been when I graduated in 1977.
Really?
Okay.
So,
All right.
That doesn't seem like that long ago, does it?
no, we had our 45th class reunion last year. So leaning on 50 now.
Oh, this would have been my 30th class reunion this year.
Oh,
so.
God.
One of these days I'll be as old as Ron Seibert.
Oh,
I wonder if he listens. He probably
I
doesn't
don't know.
know how to
I'll
get.
just send him
Yes.
an invite. to
send him a
this one.
text.
I'll have to text it
Yeah.
to him because he won't do an email.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that you're here is you're a big proponent of the cooperative business model.
Yes.
You are a huge proponent of the cooperative
Yes.
business model. So first, let's ask you, how long have you been a member of Premier or one of its associated co-ops?
I guess since I would have started an account here in
1977. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So what, as far as products that you get from Premier, you run the whole gamut? I mean, fuel and all of that.
Yes.
So,
Yes, I do.
and that fuel's supplied by a cooperative. So why is a cooperative that important to you?
Well, one of the things that came to mind, I heard just in an off conversation, I didn't join in with it, but with one of the natural disasters that we had, I don't remember if it was Katrina or one of those hurricanes that shut down a lot of the refineries, we knew that we would have a supply of fuel for that fall because of Country Mark. So that was, and they were going to take care of their customers first before. So having that reassurance through your co-op supply chain is very, very comforting.
For sure.
You think of energy independence, and I think Ryan's on that board, right?
Yep.
You think of energy independence, and that comes right out of the Illinois basin, correct?
Yep.
And I'd forgot about that. I think it was Katrina, and there was it was either that or Ivan, maybe. Anyway,
Yeah,
lose
but,
track of the names, but
it was, and that was right at starting of harvest, and it was like, you're going to have fuel. So
Yeah, I think they've done that several times where they've taken an inward focus and saying we're gonna hold that here, and even if they have work to do on the refinery or it may reduce some of their production, I mean they still kind of hole up and say, hey, these outside sales, we're going to make sure our members are taken care of, and that's important with a cooperative. So yes, I've been fortunate to be involved with that organization since 2017. So
It's
as a board member.
It's remarkable how many, as far as Premier Energy, which we call that division now, how many municipalities and ambulances and people depend on us for a reliable supplier. So, Donald, other family members, who else is involved in the farming operation?
mostly it's just me. Luke is through the LLCs is a minority owner, which I stress to him quite often that he is minority.
Does he listen?
Yeah, he
Oh, we
is.
can bring him in if he'd like.
I think he's upstairs.
Yeah, he's here.
So and his wife Caitlin and my daughter Emily and my wife Susie, we're all owners of the two LLCs that we have.
I've got to bring up a story,
Okay.
and this is one that Luke told me. And Luke, it was a spring. That's probably 4 or 5 years ago. We had a wet spring, and some folks were getting started, and Luke would go to his dad. I say, Donald, Dad, don't you think we ought to be starting here pretty soon? And Donald be like, no, it's not ready yet. Not ready yet. It's too wet. And Luke would come back in a few days. Don't you think we ought to get it out, get it going? And after about 2 or 3 of those instances, Luke tells me the story. Donald, he said, Dad looked at me and said, I can't wait till this is all yours and you get to mess it up the first time.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah.
That's and that we always want to rush. I always want to rush too. I remember pulling spreader trucks out and everything else when I thought we should be going. Find out later that we probably should have been going.
Yeah.
So what is the largest obstacle that you see in agriculture right now from your standpoint? You told us you've been at it for a while. Farming is important, and what do you see as an obstacle in agriculture? Not necessarily for you, but for everyone.
For everyone, land use. How do you work with green energy and not take valuable farmland out of production? How do you put in solar farms, wind farms, and still have enough acreage left to feed the world? I see that coming on the horizon. So I did this summer a U.S.-German ag forum where we talked about sustainability, and there was 8 German farmers and 8 American farmers, and we met from February through September and actually wrote a paper at the end of it. And we spent 5 days out at the University of Illinois, and that's prime farm ground. But they had 60 acres taken out of production for solar. And they're trying to do crops they can raise in the solar field too. So, I mean, they're working on it. They understand that does take valuable farmland out of production to do those things.
So, for our listeners, just a little more explanation, just so they listeners can kind of picture this. And 60 acres doesn't sound like much, but south of Indianapolis and just in some other parts, I don't need to necessarily get too geographic specific, but these solar fields or panels, when they go into a field in prime farm ground, that ground can never be farmed again.
No.
And we may say like maybe there's other ag uses, but unless you're going to graze sheep or something around it, which is not really practical in Illinois, that wouldn't be a place where there's a market for something like that. But once that ground is out of production and disturbed with burying trenches and concrete and other things, it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a challenge. I never thought about one of the biggest challenges just being
There was a company in our neighborhood a couple of years ago looking to put together 1,000 continuous acres for a solar farm. And I'm reasonably sure they didn't get it. They got some people to agree, but I don't think it's going any farther than that.
They wave enough dollars. It is. I mean, it has to cause people pause to say,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And these were some pretty big dollars they were waving out there, which makes me think right away, they're probably not going to get this done.
Seems desperate a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think Brian Fisher, a former guest on the podcast and a Farm Legacy series contributor, he stated we sit on the board of directors for the Agribusiness Council of Indiana, and he brought up that land that those solar fields go on, prime farm ground, is classified as vacant on the maps that those folks look at. And when you think about that, you think vacant. I mean, you think almost non-usable, or somebody has done something with it and then moved off from it. I mean, it may be growing 250 bushel corn on it,
right,
but it's still classified as vacant ground. And he was asking that we make the push to say that needs to be changed. That classification absolutely needs to be changed, because that's not vacant ground. I mean, that is clearly feeding the world, and we need to be cognizant of that. So I'm glad you brought up land usage, because it's a big one. When you see those huge warehouses and solar fields, and just like those folks ought to get together.
Shouldn't they? Doesn't that just seem like the
should.
most easiest answer
Yeah,
is to
you
put
get
the panels on top of the...
975,000 square foot building. I'd put it on the roof.
That's
a
Yeah,
good
see what
idea.
that looked like.
Never thought of that. But well, now I guess you talked about green energy, and a lot of folks that aren't familiar with agriculture. If you think back to 1977, can you tell us about some of the more sustainable practices that you've started using? What you have done that would be different than some of the farming practices back in the 70s.
Well, Dad was an early implementer of no-till. So I remember we rented an old Alice Chalmers planter and planted our first no-till probably 77 or
That is
78.
early. Yeah.
And we dabbled around a little bit with cover crops to plant and plant corn in then in the spring and then terminate the crop, and not much success there on that. So, but Dad did continue no-tilling, and I still have probably 50% of the ground is no-till and 50% is vertical tillage. So,
And so for the listeners, and I think we've covered this on some other podcasts, but maybe they didn't listen to those. But no-till is where you just don't disturb the soil.
Right.
I mean, you got the previous crop, the fodder is still there from the previous crop, and you plant right into the seed bed, and the planter just doesn't disturb very much of the ground at all.
right.
Keeps the wind erosion, rain erosion, really protects the soil resource.
So, are that early, 50 years ago ish, 45 years ago? What was his motivation for being a no-tiller at that point in time when plowing was so popular?
Conservation was definitely where we did our first no-tilling, was on highly erodible soils.
Okay.
So he was.
Did you turn a piece of ground into farm ground, or was it farm ground
It was farm ground we were using,
and
and
you thought we can do better?
yeah,
Was that from a slope, or was that sand, or
slope.
Slope? Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things of course, in Washington County, Indiana, we have a lot of hills, and that's, I think, very early back in the 80s and early 90s when no-till started, that was really a big consideration. I mean, I can't remember that. I can't believe they used to mow-board plow those
Yeah,
hillsides.
we did too, and yeah, every year. Probably, I'd say we mow-boarded until probably mid-'80s. So.
Okay. Well, let's jump back to the cooperatives just for a little bit. As far as a cooperative, why do you think a cooperative is important to the community, farming community, and also our non-farming neighbors, as an advocate for the cooperative system?
Give us a farmer a choice, and so that's always important. Cooperative is local, and we can help fund some projects around here, 4-H, FFA, those type of things that stay in the communities. So I think that's why, and cooperatives are also important because of the way we can do business with them. I like the supply chain from local to regionals and all in a cooperative system.
Yeah, just the people don't understand the model, and there's lots of different cooperatives. And when we say it's local, meaning that the earnings all stay right here. I mean, it's for the most part, obviously, right? But it's not like we have shareholders that are in another country, that are stakeholders. So what's one of the, this ought to be fun. What's one of the most important lessons that you think you've learned during your career with Schnitcker Farms? And you can the top three may hit it, but what's one of the most important ones that you think?
Well, I think it's one Luke's actually learning. Dad isn't always wrong.
I'm anxious to talk to Luke after this is over. Yeah.
And, I remember learning that Dad knew what he was talking about. So
Yep. Usually that starts, the realization hits kind of in that mid-20s.
Yeah.
You get kind of the idea that your dad's really
And Luke was late bloomer on
late
that.
bloomer.
And we might preface that Luke is an account manager and a very important piece of the premier team. So
Learned that. That's still one of the things I think about, and it goes back to that story you relayed about Luke. Was I remember when we would go out and plant corn while Dad was still planting, and we'd always check the depth, and he said, my dad would not tell me how deep to plant corn, and I'm not going to tell you. So,
yeah,
and every time I dig up, I hear that voice.
Is that right?
Yep.
interesting. That's fun.
So other things that I've learned, stewardship is very important in our line of work. Taking care of our land so that it can take care of us.
Very good. You've also done talking about building relationships, and you have developed over the years just relationships across the industry, across countries, and whenever you're talking and meeting people, um, your network of folks, um, how do you work to promote agriculture? It seems like you really put um, you do it. I guess you're kind of an ambassador in your own way. Whenever you have friends and stuff that aren't in our industry that don't farm.
So one of the things that I do is I'm I don't know, they changed the name, regional council representative for Ag Region 4 of Land O'Lakes. So on that committee, I'm also have been assigned to be part of Land O'Lakes Policies and Resolutions Committee, which we go to DC at least once a year to lobby our elected leaders. And so there is the opportunity there to bring some ag information, concerns that we have right to DC to where it can do the most good.
A lot of times those folks don't know.
They don't know. And that's one of the trainings that we got on doing that is word your questions. Don't say, you may not know anything about this. So, so you've got to word it so that you're trying to, get them on board with your way of thinking.
Even though you're thinking, there's 100% chance you don't know that.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. So I do enjoy, and I'll be finished. I've got one more year left, and then Land O'Lakes throws you out when you're 65. So
They make you retire.
they do. Yep.
Well, one of the things you've always enjoyed is kind of sharing the ag story, and in either component, whether it's at the local fair, or whether it's to your neighbors, or whether it's to someone from Germany that you have built a relationship with.
Yeah.
You've shared the ag story.
Yeah. I think it's important that everyone understand what we're going through. And you mentioned Germany. I have finally made a good acquaintance of a young farmer in Germany, and I'll see him next week. I don't know how old he is, probably near 30, but very, very diverse farmer, very active in ag in Germany with what's going on there. And their rules and regulations that they have for ag, I think will eventually, if we don't watch out, will eventually filter into the U.S. And some of that stuff, they're just going to flat drive people out of the ag, out of farming.
We get little snippets of it in the news, like what type of concerning products or restrictions, making it more difficult.
Yeah, organic, 30% organic.
Oh my!
So, and if you're not there, their ag subsidies are a lot different than ours. It's based on got to remember how this all. If you have 100 acres, and you're just going to get so much money whether or not you plant anything on it or not. So
there's no disaster protection. No.
there's no incentive.
Yeah,
Right.
there's no incentive
There's no incentive.
Oh my.
to
You
do
mean-
well.
Yeah, to do what? There's not. You're just, if you're going to get €100 an acre, you're going to get, whether you raise 100 bushel corn or.
We're not talking crop insurance. We're talking that's what you're
That's
going
direct.
to
That's
make.
it.
That's direct subsidy from the government. And then you obviously can sell your crop, but I know they say they're looking at taking that away, and they said that's what we depend on. That's our margin.
Wow. I hope we don't get to that point.
So I mean, we just need to stay very aware of what's going on in DC on rules and regulations.
So we need more farmer voice to do
Yeah.
legislative roles, and there's not much of that. It's
Right.
less than 1% of the
Right.
population. So I
Yeah.
don't know who runs at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But so I guess that's another piece of how cooperatives and people in the ag industry can help is
Yeah,
to carry that voice to the farmer.
Right, exactly. Carry that voice. That's a good point.
All right. Well, Don,
What does your farm look like from a diversity standpoint? I mean, you livestock too.
I did up until I think 2008. I had farrow to finish,
Okay.
and buildings were getting old. I was getting old, and I didn't want to mess with hogs anymore. My wife and I wanted to do some traveling, so we just thought we'd exit the hog market and freed up a lot of time.
Sure.
So
Sure. In 5 years, what do you think your operation looks like? What would you hope your operation looks like?
well, I hope that Luke can continue to work here, and that we can. I want to increase some more acres, and I have no intention of, when I turn 65, just draw a line. I don't intend to do that at all. But move him more, get him more percentage-wise of the farm, and let him start making some more of those decisions, telling me what to do.
Right. Let him plant when he wants to.
that's
Get
right.
in the
Let him
mud.
plant
Let him
when he-
put in the mud.
That's right.
Let him 2 knuckles deep in the mud. Let him go.
He'll learn that on the first.
I can't wait for that call because I'll still be here.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's my intention, and I will help him out as long as I'm healthy and can keep doing it.
That is so important. I've got some good friends, and they were in their mid-50s and brothers, and the day their dad stopped farming, they had never planted the corn.
Mm-hmm.
They had always planted the beans, and they had never ran the corn planter. And so that spring they had to figure it out. And I think that's why it's so important but let them fail a little bit. And
Yeah.
we jest, right? But it's so important to get the next
Yeah.
generation. Where's a kid going to learn how to drive a tractor? Right.
And that's, like you said, to fail. That's one thing I read years and years ago. A farmer has 40 times at the plate. So how would any lawyer want to have their whole career judged by their first 40 cases?
Wow.
Or any doctor by their first 40 patients? We got 40 times to do it right.
40 crop seasons.
Yeah, to get it right.
Gosh, that makes it pretty narrow.
Yeah, when you think about other professions and how they can improve themselves, you can have a patient as a doctor and say, "Oh yeah, I can do this better next time with that same thing," and then the next time might be in 10 minutes.
Right.
So
Right.
Never thought of it that way.
Very well put. Anything else you want to give to our listeners as pearls of wisdom?
oh yeah,
This could get fun.
There we go.
yeah. I was summoned to Harold's office last week when he found out I was doing this.
Did he mention compensation?
No, he did not.
Still
Us either.
We're just checking.
He said there's one thing I want you to get worked into into this podcast. And I said, okay. He said, I want people to know how deep your family goes into this company. And he reminded me then that my dad and a few other farmers in the area worked a construction crew that built fertilizer buildings in the late 50s and early 60s for the co-ops in the state. So,
Wow.
Oh, wow.
and most of them stood until, we just moved out or.
Yeah, we took the one in Monroe County down, which I'm sure that was probably within their jurisdiction of construction. We just took it down a couple, 3 years ago. That was built in the 60s for sure.
Yeah. So, my dad probably would have had a part in building that.
Wow.
That's neat history.
Yeah. And my grandpa was my great-grandpa was the first CEO of Jackson County.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
And so, our family's been here since day one.
Wow. Very nice.
That's neat history.
That was good.
So,
What else you got?
That's all I've got today, Ryan.
Well, certainly we appreciate and value all of our members, all of our customers, and this is just a way for us to better advocate for ag and let you guys get your voice out to hopefully a broader audience and speak to the truths that are important. The narrative's not always there for the farmers, not in your corner. So certainly we want to make sure that the truth is out there, and it's a good way to do it, to bring you on here and let you talk about it.
I thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Many years of success and more years of success, and let's not let Luke mess it up for you.
I know.
No, he's really good. We've hacked on him a little bit. He's really, really, really good. So that's all I've got.
That's all I've got. Thanks, Donald.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. That's another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Please like and subscribe.